Grand rising, grand arrival, grand return. Peace and blessings to the righteous and the repentant alike. I am Chief Sophia of the Americana Band of Indians, and this is another video. I made one of these, but I'm having to remake it because when I was making when I made the video on the manifestation tree, I realized that I got the conjunction cycle wrong. So this is a redo of the light to light or dark to dark conjunction or opposition cycle. And this is really important to get right. So I'm going to remove the other video um, and remake it. Actually, I'm going to keep the other video. I'm just going to add this because I messed up. So most astrologers and magicians, they follow a cycle of darkness, and that means they go from dark moon to dark moon. And most of them follow an absolute insane cycle, which is the dark moon of one month to the dark moon of the next month, which is totally it's totally insane. Because that's not how it works. So we're talking about cycles of planets. So what it would go is, if you're going to use the dark moon to dark moon cycle, which we do use, when we look at the dark moon, we go from dark moon in one sign to the dark moon in the same sign. So we're right now, we just had the Gemini dark moon. We're looking at the cycle from the Gemini dark moon to the next Gemini dark moon, not from the Gemini dark moon to the Cancer dark moon. It's not how it works at all. But if you're going to use that cycle, this is the kind of stuff that you're looking for. Now, they want to use that cycle because it's fast, and we have plenty of fast cycles, but that ain't it, okay? And when you use that cycle, you start with a conjunction. This is what I got wrong. Your first interaction out the gate is a square. Major interaction. You can look at sextiles too, but we're just looking at major interactions. First, you have a square. And a square is, like I mentioned in the other video, a square is they call it a harsh aspect, but what it is it's a check-in. It's a physical check-in with the energy to see if you are who you say you are. Then the interaction you have after that is a trine, right? And a trine is basically, like I said before, like if you had an easy pass. Then you have an opposition in the middle. An opposition is like a full moon when each energy is in its full power. Then you have another trine, then you have a square, then you have a conjunction. So what I found out is squares are closest to conjunctions and trines are closest to oppositions. Now this, of course, makes perfect sense. I'm not sure how I missed this, but it literally makes sense. So but that's not the cycle we follow. We don't go from conjunction to conjunction. Again, this is what most astrologers, most magicians do. And again, I believe that they're wrong. The cycle we follow is a light to light cycle. This is called daylight astrology. We go from light to light. So we start with an opposition where each energy is in its full power, its own personal full power. Then the first interaction we have out the gate is a trine. This is a check-in to make sure, hey, you're still in your full power, everything is good, right? The following interaction is a square. That is a check-in because there's getting ready to be a conjunction, which is where you merge with another energy. Before you merge with another energy, don't you think you should check in and make sure that is the correct energy you're supposed to be merging with? That's what the square is. It's a hold up, pause for the cause. Let's make sure you are who you say you are, right? Because the conjunction is you, depending on which is the superior and an inferior conjunction because usually one planet is in front of the other. It just depends. But it's a conjunction. You guys are the same energy at the same time. Then when you come out of the conjunction, it's another check-in. Hey, are you still okay? Everything fine? Whatever it is. Then you go to a trine, which is a easy pass lane. You're just cruising back to your next opposition where you come back into your full power. The difference between the dark to dark cycle and the light to light cycle is you go from controller to controller. Like you're being controlled in the beginning and you're being controlled in the end. In the light cycle, you go from full power in your own respect to full power in your own respect. This is the cycle of relationships. Now, I went into this in detail in the first video, which is why I'm not going to take it down because it's right, but I just said it in the wrong order. Abusive relationships follow the dark to dark cycle. They start out, what is that? Love bombing. Okay, they start out love bombing. You know, you meet somebody and they love everything you love and they like everything you like, and you guys are just somehow magically perfect even though you've never quote unquote met this person. Then you have a fight, right? Because this person said they loved everything you love, but maybe they weren't telling the truth. Then you keep flowing along in that maybe I got something wrong until you have a big opposition, a big falling out, like a big falling out, right? Then you kind of come back together because maybe you overreacted and they overreacted and you didn't do things the right way. And then you have what? Another mini falling out. Like it's just like one more thing. If it triggers, you just get set off. And then next thing you know, you're back in a conjunction. That is a very unhealthy relationship for an energy, for a human, for any of that. And it's not how anything works. It's just literally not how anything works that's healthy, okay? That is a very unhealthy relationship. If somebody told me they were in a relationship like that, I would tell them it was unhealthy. And I have told people, the relationship you're in is very unhealthy. If I don't know who you are from your whoever your person, that's a very unhealthy relationship. I say it all the time. I don't care. And it's true 100% of the time. The healthy cycle is the light to light cycle. What is, I'm in my full power, you're in your full power. We're flowing. That's the trine. We're flowing with that energy. We come to a square. We have a disagreement in how things should be done. In a square is not a disagreement. It's a check-in. Hey, are you okay with this? Hey, are you okay with this? Then you what? You come together from a position of having checked in to see if you're okay with the way things are going. Then you have another check-in after you have your conjunction. You have another check-in, right? And say, are you okay? Yeah, you're okay. Okay, I'm okay. We're good. You're flowing again. You're back into your full power. With the light cycle, you're always going from being in your full power to back into your full power. You don't get traces of your full power. You get to live in your full power, and you just have times when you come together and that's cool, and then you go back to being who you are on the outside, who you always are. You never let go of who you are in a light cycle. In a dark cycle, you can't really tell who you are because you're always trying to avoid the square. You're trying to stay in the trine. You're never just flowing with the energy. If someone told me they were in this kind of cycle where this how my old man and I are, we're in our full power individually at all times. At all times. I never have to worry about lowering or lessening who I am to make him feel comfortable with who he is. They're mutually exclusive, meaning he's who he is all the time and I'm who I am all the time. No problem. That is a healthy relationship. The unhealthy ones is when you give up who you are to become someone else. No, that's unhealthy. That's very unhealthy. And so we are giving these planetary energies new life by requiring them, reading them in a way that is healthy and productive. So why does this matter? I think that's why I'm leaving the other video up, because I talk about this cycle between um, I didn't listen to the other video, but let me just talk about a cycle, okay? So if you, we're going through the midst of a, which is, should I use a short cycle or a long cycle? I think I'm gonna use the one I already have pulled up. We're in the midst of a Jupiter Saturn transit. Now, this is important. Jupiter and Saturn are very, very important for a lot of reasons. They basically are indicative of the head, of the leader. Okay, this is a leadership cycle. The Jupiter Saturn transit is indicative of the leadership cycle. Okay, and so many people say that this cycle started with the conjunction that we had in 2020. Now remember, when you start your cycle with a conjunction, that means you have given up your authority over yourself and you've given it to another entity. And this is why we're not starting a cycle like that. We are looking at this cycle as starting with the opposition. Now, let me pull up my chart real quick. I have it. I was just looking at it. So if we're looking at this cycle of Jupiter and Saturn, let me go back. Conjunction. Okay, this cycle started. We had oppositions. We had three oppositions between Jupiter and Saturn. One May 23rd of 2010, one August 16th of 2010, and one March 28th of 2011, the last one. So that is when this cycle started. This is a 2010 cycle, okay? Right after that, in 2013, July the 17th, December the 13th, and May the 24th of 2014, we had the trine energy between Jupiter and Saturn. Following the trine energy, we had the check-in. Okay, the check-in was it's a square energy, obviously, and it was the opening square, like the beginning of the cycle before the conjunction, and that was August 3rd, 2015, March 23rd, 2016, and May 26th, 2016. Then we had the sextile. Okay, then we had the conjunction December the 21st, 2020. Okay, then we had the square after the conjunction. The first one was August 19th, 2024. The second one was December 24th, 2024. And the one we just had or will have on Sunday is June the 15th, 2025. And that is our last square. So these negative entities think that this is the opening square because they're following the top cycle, meaning Jupiter and Saturn are in some kind of jelly, messy situationship, and this is the opening test, right? To see if they're going to be able to make this relationship work. Now, with the light cycle, this is the closing test. This is the test to see if this relationship can work the way that it is. We've already had the conjunction to see what happens when we bring these two energies together. Now we're trying to see if these two energies can remain in their own sovereign power when they come out of this conjunction. That's what this whole battle is about right now. Can these energies, Jupiter and Saturn, maintain their sovereignty after the conjunction? Meaning they came together, they birthed what needed to be birthed in 2020, which I had a baby in 2020, so this is, my child has this built into their charts. So I'm very familiar with this energy. They came together to see if what they did, what they birthed at that time, is going to be able to sustain. After this, we have trines. The first trine is August the 31st, 2026. Then we have one April the 3rd, 2027. Then we have one July the 11th, 2027. Then we have five oppositions. December 22nd, 2029, April 24th, 2030, November 20th, 2030, and August the 1st, 2031. No. And October the 6th, 2031. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's 5. So this cycle, this opposition cycle, will reassert itself 5 times. All the other times I saw, it was 3. This, this what's coming up in 2029 is no joke. And I've already pulled dates that jumped off the page in relations to that far out, and it's this cycle is no joke. Now, if you watch my Jupiter Saturn video, which I did, I already referred to it in another video today, so I'm gonna share it if it's public. If you see my Jupiter Saturn, I think I have a public facing one. If you see my Jupiter Saturn video, we talked about this cycle from now until then. And I go into great detail about it, but not from this perspective of the trines and the squares and the actual planetary aspects, because at the time I didn't have this information. But now that I have it, it makes these things make more sense to me. And so we'll have to do an overlay of that cycle. So this is to understand, like I mentioned in another one of the videos that I put out, the closest thing to a conjunction is a square. The closest thing to an opposition is a trine. So when planets are opposite each other, the first aspect that comes in, meaningful aspect that comes in, is a trine. It's where the energy flows. That's you maintaining your power. That's you holding on to what you learned in the previous cycle. If you don't start out the cycle holding on to what you learned in the previous cycle, you're going to be a mess by the time the cycle is over. And that's the cycle they've had us on. By starting the cycles with conjunctions, and then right out the gate starting it with a square, which is a harsh aspect, you don't even know who you are. So you're literally coming out of, let's, in sexual terms, because this again is all about sexual energy and how it's used. You're coming out of some kind of sexual interaction with somebody, and the first thing that's happening is they're like, "Who are you?" And we were just in the bedroom. What do you mean? Who am I? That's what that's like. Whereas in the light to light cycle, you're like, "Hello, my name is such and such," and you're like, "Yes, my name is such and such." Then you're getting to know each other. That's what the trine energy. You're conversing. You're having a conversation. You're healthily engaging in some kind of a situation with this person. Then you say, would you like to go back to this room with me? Let me check in and see how you're feeling about that. Or would you like to go on another date? Or can we go on a first date? Whatever, wherever you meet this person. And you're like, yes, that would be nice. I would love that. Let's go ahead. But it's a light square when it's like, oh, okay. Or can I get your number? Oh, okay, sure. You can have my number. That's fine. Then what? You conjunct, you meet, you talk on the phone and this and that and so on and so forth. Then there's another square. Hey, would you like to come over after dinner? We've, been spending time together. Should we go to the next level? It's a check-in to see, hey, is this relationship actually moving anywhere, or like what is going on here? Then you're back to flowing in the energy. You're just moving naturally as things go, whatever. And then the next step is you're back in opposition. And opposition is not, oh, I'm fighting with you and this is all aggressive and all of that. It's like, no, I'm in my full power, but maybe now I live in your house. I'm in my full power, but maybe, we had a kid or whatever. Like, you're still in your full power and they're still in their full power. But your full power is you both having a relation, you wanting to be with the person, not this unhealthy dark to dark cycle where it's like the person walks up to you, hey, baby, let me get your number. Excuse me? Then you have to think, why would I give you? Okay, let's say you give them the number. Then you're talking on the phone and you're like, oh my God, this is a psychotic person. Then they're like, okay, let's go out. And you're like, okay, let's just see. Maybe this person's not as bad. Then you get to the date and the person is crazy. They're like talking all wild and all of that, and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to get out of this situation with this person? They are nuts and I've already invested too much time. What am I going to do? Then you have this flowing energy. You have to somehow make it look normal because you clearly already know that they're crazy from the square you already had with them. But since they already think y'all are like together because you gave them their number when they ask you without even knowing who you were, what your name was, or anything like that, you're trying to figure out how to get home in one piece. Then what? You have to ghost them or some sort of harsh aspect where you're like, talking to them and say, I don't think this is going to work. It was nice meeting you and all of that. And then next thing you know, you're either back in the conjunction with them, they come to your house and they beat you up, or, you're back in the bed with another man, or whatever it is. You're just starting a new cycle without ever addressing the fact that all of that was unhealthy. It was unhealthy. This is why so many women and men have just given up on relationships. They don't understand you maintain your power the whole time. You choose to give up your power. You're not forced into it. And the people who do understand this are very few and far between. You have to look very hard to find somebody who understands intrinsically how this works. That's why these red pill people somebody could take this information and make billions of dollars. This is the truth about men are from Mars and women are from Venus. Because Mars and Venus, if you're looking at the Mars and Venus cycle, like for example, I have Mars and Venus are pretty close in my chart. They're almost conjunct. And I talked about this in another video where I got cut off. When Mars and Venus are close in your chart, you don't need another person to make you feel like a whole person. But if Mars and Venus are opposite in your chart, you're never going to feel like a whole person until you find a person who has a planet that's close to your Mars or close to your Venus. If you're a male, close to your, it depends, but basically your synastry between your charts, it's going to be very close between your Mars and your Venus are going to have some kind of thing, because when you have Mars and Venus together in your chart, you already have all the pieces you need for that. But if they're separate in your chart, you will never have all the pieces you need. You will not feel like a whole and complete person until you are in a relationship. And if you know that, again, it's not a bad thing. If you know that, then you can operate like that. But if you don't know that's how it works, you'll just be out here sleeping with person to person, trying to fill a hole that you can't fill, because you really need to find a person who has good Mars and Venus synastry with you. I mean, that's literally like as simple as it is. Like, and most people who've been together all these times, they have good Mars and Venus synastry. Or the person has their own Mars and Venus together, and they have synastry with a person who's Mars and Venus, or both people have Mars and Venus together and they're together by choice. It's pure choice. It has nothing to do with it's based on something else in the chart. Let me just put it that way. It's based on some other synastry. Mars and Venus synastry is the most difficult synastry to work with, in my opinion. So I never got into synastry because it's all so complicated. So yes, I'm gonna leave the other video. The points I made were correct. They're just in reverse. So this is going to be an addendum, an update already, because I got the first one wrong. Not that what I said was wrong, I just got it in the wrong order. So what I said about the dark to dark cycle is actually true about the light to light cycle, and vice versa. Oh, I could have just done that, right? Anyway, I don't know. So I hope this video is helpful. Shalom, peace and blessings, and we'll see you in the next video.